So, the Polar Bears of Churchill. This was our trip. So, what we did is we started out in Elmira, New York, and then we went to Detroit, then Minneapolis, then Winnipeg, and then all the way up to Churchill, where we viewed the polar bears. Now, before we talk about our trip to watch the polar bears in Churchill, I found some great videos that give you terrific information on polar bears, and they are on my playlist for polar bears on my YouTube channel. So let's watch these, and then we will talk about our trip to Churchill to see the polar bears.
He's the largest land predator on Earth. A near-perfect killing machine. And for eons, the polar bear has engaged in a struggle for survival with the elusive ringed seal. The seal goes for a tactical approach, while the bear relies on stealth and raw power. It's a battle of evolutionary behavior and biomechanics, all seen through the eyes of a predator. He remained perfectly still for 2 hours, waiting for the seal to pop her head out of a hole in the ice. While standing there, the bear had to endure temperatures of 40 below zero and 120 km/h winds. But this bear has an amazing adaptation to survive and even thrive in some of the most bone-chilling conditions on the planet. He is so well insulated that he emits almost no heat. All his warmth is locked away deep inside his body, protecting him from the sub-zero Arctic weather. And he's genetically outfitted with an extreme layering system. He's packed on 10 centimeters of insulating fat, the byproduct of eating hundreds of blubbery seals. The fat is encased in a thick hide with a surprising genetic twist. The skin is black, not white, so it absorbs sunlight, generating heat. Above that is a 5-centimeter layer of short, dense hair, like a thick sweater that traps heat and keeps the bear warm. And to top him all off, the ultimate winter coat. 12 centimeters of stiff outer fur that's completely water repellent.
Polar bear's fur is not white. The fur is actually transparent. It consists of 2 layers of transparent hair, a soft, thick undercoat, and a layer of hollow guard hairs. The layers only appear white because the air spaces in each hair scatter all visible wavelengths of light. Underneath this fur, polar bears have black skin. Sunlight can penetrate the bear's transparent fur and reach its black skin, which absorbs the sun's heat and warms the bear's body. Polar bears are excellent swimmers. They've evolved to have a narrow skull and a long, flexible neck, which are believed to help streamline their bodies in the water and provide the reach and flexibility they need to bring their noses up for air. Their front paws are large, up to 12 inches wide, flat, and act as paddles as the bears swim and even hunt marine animals while underwater. Additionally, the bears have a 2 to 4 inch layer of fat that helps keep them buoyant and warm as they swim. Polar bears are the largest land carnivore. They may grow up to 8 feet tall and weigh over 1,760 pounds, far outweighing the next largest land predator, the Kodiak brown bear, by several hundreds of pounds. This hefty size allows polar bears to hunt large, powerful animals like walruses and beluga whales. Because of their tremendous size, polar bears have no natural predators, apart from humans. Polar bears only live in the Arctic. This region includes areas of Russia, Greenland, Norway, and the United States. However, up to 80% of the world's polar bears live in one country, Canada.
For the next several days, this bear wanders the frozen landscape, searching for that next meal. But in the vast expanse of the Arctic Circle, there are just 2.5 ringed seals for every square kilometer. It's like searching for only 23 seals on the entire island of Manhattan. And worse yet, even if he finds one, there's usually a meter of thick, impenetrable ice between him and his elusive meal. And underneath that ice, this seal can swim circles around the polar bear. So she wisely spends 90% of her entire life underwater. But ringed seals are mammals, and mammals have to come to the surface to breathe. So every precious breath of life could lead to her death. But the seal still has the edge, because the bear never knows where the seal will appear. He can only stand guard at one hole. And in a 2.5 square kilometer radius, the seal uses up to 12 different breathing holes. She doesn't breathe from the same hole every time she needs air, which forces the bear into a guessing game. It's a deadly contest of Russian roulette, in which the seal literally risks her life every time she comes up for air. So this bear is once again waiting almost 2 hours over a hole. Trying to anticipate where the seal will emerge.
The best strategy is just to wait very still until the seal comes up, not making any motions, not scraping the ice or anything else like that.
It's called still hunting. He has to remain perfectly motionless, because even the slightest shift by the bear sends vibrations through the ice and into the water, where they trigger the seal's sensitive whiskers. With 10 times as many nerve fibers as a cat's whiskers, it gives her an amazing ability to sense the bear's presence without even seeing him. just below the surface of the ice, this ringed seal has now gone almost 10 minutes without breathing. She's searching for a hole to come up for air. Just above the ice, the polar bear sits over a breathing hole. It's been nearly a week since the bear's last meal. He hasn't been at the right hole at the right time and is losing more than the guessing game. He's beginning to dip into his own fat reserves. And since the lean summer months are coming, if this polar bear misses too many opportunities, he won't survive.
It's not easy for the bear. 90% of the time he goes to a breathing hole, he comes up empty-handed. But that 10% of the time he does snag himself a seal, man, it's worth the wait. Because there's enough fat on that seal to last him for a whole week.
But there's no room for error. When the seal comes up for air, he has a paper-thin window in which to catch her. He must react immediately when the seal's nose emerges.
He knows that that little sound that accompanies breathing means that you've got 70 milliseconds to react and get in there and grab it.
The polar bear finally makes his move, but emerges with a mouthful of nothing. He did everything right. He picked the right hole. He waited patiently, motionless. And his reaction was 4 times faster than the blink of an eye. So why isn't this bear eating a seal? Because it doesn't matter how quickly you get into the hole when the hole is empty. In this evolutionary battle for survival, the seal has developed a tactic that may actually use the bear's stunning reaction time against it. She stops just short of the hole and exhales, sending bubbles to the surface, which tricks the polar bear into quickly exposing his position. In a fraction of a second, she's determined that this hole is unsafe and moves on without a scratch. It's a victory for the seal, but she's still in danger. She never took in any air at the breathing hole, and expending so much energy on her escape is depleting her already low oxygen supply.
She's got to find access to the air. These seals are pretty good at knowing where the holes are and finding air. But there are times when there isn't a breathing hole there. But at some point, they're going to have trouble.
In the high Arctic, water freezes faster than anywhere on Earth. And at 40 degrees below zero, liquid quickly becomes solid. The seal returns to one of her breathing holes, but it's frozen up, trapping her under the very ice that shields her from the polar bear. And since she can only hold her breath for 1 more minute, doesn't have enough time to reach the other open holes. Her one shot is to return to the scene of the crime, the hole where she just fooled the polar bear. The seal faces a death or death decision. Die by drowning, or die in the jaws of the polar bear. The seal catches a life-saving break. The polar bear abandoned the hole and ventured back out in search of something to satisfy his growing hunger. Having lost a meal, he continues to lose vital calorie reserves needed to survive the lean summer months. He journeys for kilometers with no signs of life.
Unless the wind is blowing hard enough to drive the snow, it sounds quiet all the time because there's nothing for the wind to act against. It can be dead quiet for days.
This polar bear just lost a seal meal, but the polar bear has to eat a seal every 5 days. If it doesn't, it's going to be in big trouble and lose all the fat it has. Now, when a polar bear finds another polar bear, that's going to be a problem because either they will be fighting for a mate or they will be fighting to eat the other polar bear because one of the polar bears is so hungry. So polar bears are kind of cannibalistic if they get hungry at all.
In a clash for mating rights, these ferocious fighters could tear each other to shreds. They have 5 razor-sharp claws, 10 centimeters long and 3 centimeters thick, that can slice chunks out of flesh. But if they're injured in any way, their hunting ability is compromised, which means they could easily starve. So this fight is more about intimidation. Their 42 serrated teeth are connected to one of the strongest jaws on the planet.
So let's talk about the top 10 animals that have the strongest jaws in the world. The first one is you're looking at, this is number 10, and this actually is a hyena. And they can crush bones with their teeth and jaws. So that's number 10. This picture was taken by my wife when we were in Africa in the Okavango Delta in Botswana. Number 9 is the grizzly bear. These are huge bears, and this picture again was taken by my wife at Katmai National Park in the Kenai Peninsula of Alaska. These are really big, and what they're doing is they're feeding on salmon that are trying to swim upriver. Number 8 is our polar bear, the biggest bears on Earth. Number 6 is the gorilla. That has wickedly strong jaws and teeth. Now, number 5 is going to be in the big cat category. Cougars, lions, cheetahs, tigers, and leopards, all those will be that category. My wife took this picture in the Okavango Delta in Botswana of a big lion. Number 5, well, you guessed it, are some big shark jaws. This is a picture of a great white shark I took off South Africa. But the strongest jaws of the shark families probably go to the bull shark. They're very aggressive and they have very strong jaws. So number 4, you aren't going to believe. The 4th strongest jaws in the animal kingdom, that would be the hippopotamus. And amazingly enough, it is the most dangerous large animal in Africa. It kills more people than any other animal in Africa. Look at the size of its jaws and huge teeth. So the strongest jaws in the animal kingdom go to an animal that was around at the time of the dinosaurs. Yes, it is alligators and crocodiles. So number 3 would be an alligator, like the American alligator found in Florida. Number 2 would be the regular crocodile. And number 1, the strongest jaws in the animal kingdom would go to saltwater crocodiles. They can get up and over 20 feet long. You absolutely don't want to tangle with these ancient animals. This is a picture that my wife took while we were in Australia. And this is a regular crocodile, not a saltwater.
Because this winter, he's falling way short of his seal quota. He's burning thousands of calories a day, yet consuming none. And worse yet, it's the brink of summer, when just over half of the 15 million square kilometers of Arctic ice melts. And the bear's hunting ground literally disappears from under his feet.
In the summertime, the less your chances of actually getting access to seals. They're in the water swimming around and therefore not available to the bears. So that's a tough time for them.
With hunger gnawing at him, he scrounges the windswept coast for food, but he can't find anything to sustain him.
So now let's get into our trip finally. There's Churchill and there's Hudson Bay, and we are way down in Elmira. They're the Great Lakes, and down in Elmira we go. Now this is a great overhead shot of Churchill, and the ice is breaking up. That's when the polar bears go from the ice to the land. And Churchill has the highest concentration of polar bears in the spring and summer and fall of any place on Earth. And they stay on the rocks, and they're very hard to spot until they're right next to you. This is what Churchill looks like from the air. It's almost all lakes and water. In the upper part of the picture, you can see the runway. It was used during the Cold War in the 60s and 70s by the US and the Canadians. Now on the left-hand side, there's Hudson Bay. And Hudson Bay is huge, but it's only average about maybe 60, 70 feet deep. But that's where it's total ice, and that's where the polar bears during the wintertime. You don't go anywhere in Churchill without an armed guard. Usually 1 to 2 armed guards. And there's 12-gauge shotguns with 2 loaded crackers and 2 rifled slugs in there. And we are looking for polar bears. And as you can see, it's quite windy, but oh, there's our first polar bear that we saw during the trip. And it's on the rocks, and in the background, if you see little splashes of white, those are beluga whales coming up to the surface to breathe, because beluga whales are mammals.
Standing up there.
So let's see if we can see another beluga whale come up. Yep, up on the upper right-hand side, there's one right above the polar bear. Pretty cool. So here's the lodge we stayed in. It's called the Lazy Bear Lodge. Absolutely gorgeous. Built by Wally and his family from timbers from a forest fire. So the town of Churchill has about 800 to 900 people. And that's during the winter and summertime. And the only way you can get there is by plane, because the railroad was washed out. Now, This is the main street in Churchill, and notice all the trucks and cars? They never ever lock their doors in the trucks and cars. Do you know why? Because if a polar bear walks through town and is close to you, you can jump in any truck or any car and get right into safety. So here is my wife, and she's wearing a bug jacket because in the spring and fall and summer, the bugs can be super fierce. But if the wind is blowing, everything will be okay because the bugs can't get you then. Now, take a peek at this van. Look at its wheels. Incredible. The snow gets so deep that you need treads instead of wheels. So most of the vans have changed over to tank treads, and they work quite well in the wintertime. Pretty amazing. So Michelle and I went for a stroll by ourselves, which is a little dangerous, but the first sign we saw was, "Stop, don't walk in this area, polar bear sightings." So we went, oh great. So this was the coastline, and so I have a little bit of video of what the coast is like. And remember, anytime at all, a polar bear can pop up, and you can't outrun these animals. You have to be somewhere where you can get in a car or go to safety very quickly. So our boat tour along the Hudson Bay shore down there was canceled for today because this is not an ocean. This is a bay, and look at the size of these waves coming in from a bay. So the wind is really strong, and we're going to go snorkeling this afternoon, we hope. And we have to be careful because polar bears can pop out on any of these rocks at any time. So we have to be real careful about looking for them. So this is my most favorite sign I ever saw in Manitoba, in Churchill. If a polar bear attacks you, you must fight back. Are you serious? These things, as you're going to see, are unbelievably big. The biggest bear in the world. In fact, it's the biggest terrestrial carnivore in the world. This is called an Arctic crawler or a tundra buggy. That's Phil, and he can reach up to about 7.5 feet. But the polar bears can get up to 9 feet tall. They use these tundra buggies during the winter time when the polar bears are in the snow. So here is Michelle, and this is the typical size of a polar bear in Churchill. It's about 7, 8, even 9 feet tall. Yeah, fight back, sure. And the size of its paw is as big as a dinner plate. Look at the size. It's bigger than my wife's head, much bigger. And the next shot you're going to see is a picture that Michelle took of a sleeping polar bear, and look at its front paw. It's absolutely gigantic. It's like a Popeye arm with a huge paw on the end of it. The claws are about 5, 6, 7 inches long. They are huge and super sharp. Now, the cool thing about the bear paw is it's like Velcro on the bottom, so it can run on ice without slipping. That is an unbelievable trait, if you ask me. You can see the black is part of the Velcro. Now, bears are absolutely great swimmers. They use their front paws to paddle, and they use their back or hind legs as a rudder. And they swim very quickly, much faster than a human can swim. They are excellent, absolutely excellent in the water. So let's say you're just walking down the road in Churchill like this person is, and you spot a polar bear nearby. First, run to the nearest car, jump in, and then you have to call the Polar Bear Patrol. Yes, there is such a thing as the Polar Bear Patrol. It's 3 big trucks mounted with super bright lights. And you can see one here, but this picture was taken during Halloween. And the Polar Bear Patrol people are giving candy to the trick-or-treaters. You got to go out kind of early while the sun's still up, because the polar bears are always around. An armed bear patrol guy or girl will come over with the 12-gauge shotgun and try to scare the bear away. Like I said before, they're loaded with 2 crackers and then 2 rifled slugs. A cracker is a shotgun shell that you shoot, and it shoots a cherry bomb about 50 to 100 feet, and it will explode above the bear's head and try to scare it away. If that doesn't scare away the bear and it's attacking, then they'd use the rifle slugs. But most of the time, the bear will be scared away. But if it comes back into town, then it is going to get hit by a dart that has anesthesia in it, and it will tranquilize the bear. The other way to catch the bear is a bear trap. And what they do is they put fresh seal meat in this bear trap. The polar bears love seals. It's their main food. So what happens is, if they don't use the tranquilizer gun, they will use the bear trap. And most of the time it works and it traps the bear inside. But in this case, as you see, it actually trapped my wife. But this is what it looks like inside the bear trap. It's extremely strong, as you are going to see in a second. Look at the size of the iron bars they use to keep the polar bears in and not breaking out of the polar bear trap. Very thick. So this is the polar bear holding facility, also known as Polar Bear Jail. It was built around 1982, and it's like three Quonset huts in a row. It is quite large, and it's got absolutely beautiful murals on the front and on the side, like that one. Now, it can hold up to 28 polar bears at a time. And we didn't go in it. They won't let you in it, but here's what it looks like inside. Reinforced concrete and iron bars. And today it's held over 2,000 polar bears. Pretty amazing, isn't it? And what happens is, once the polar bear's in there, they keep it in there for, 30 to 40 days. So after the time is up, they tranquilize the polar bear, put it in a net, and then they have a helicopter, and they helicopter the polar bear about 50 miles away. So hopefully it won't come back to Churchill. So when we go on tour, we are always protected by the guides. They always have shotguns with rifled slugs in them. Now, what you're going to see is Michelle's still pictures like this one and my video from now on from the trip. It's a little bouncy, as you see, because the water was really, really rough. So let's just check it out. You can see the mom and the cub in this video. Polar bear cubs are born from November through January in a snow den, like that little one you're seeing right now.
Great contrast.
And they come out around late March or April.
Comes the bad little
So
one.
this is a baby, as you see, coming up.
Man.
Here it comes. This is the shot.
Yeah.
Here it is.
Yeah.
Out in the background.
All right. You can't get it? Okay, no.
All right, get it. It's like the money shot. This bear that I'm videoing right now was swimming. I missed the shot, but it was swimming in the Hudson Bay area and just came ashore. And it climbed up on these rocks looking at us, and in a bit you'll see it shake the water off of its waterproof fur. Michelle has a great shot of it standing up, and that'll be coming up in just a second or two. Here's the picture, and this was a very large bear. Our guide said it was between 8 and 9 feet tall. Can you imagine that? During the summer months, these bears just lounge around, as you see this one doing, because they don't want to expend very much energy, because they haven't eaten for months. And what they do is they scavenge around for things on the shore. They don't really eat until the ice freezes over on Hudson Bay, and then finally they go out on the ice and they look for ring seals. So they just kind of chill out on the rocks for just about the whole summer. Now, in this next video clip you're going to see in just a few seconds, there will be another polar bear in the background. And usually at this time the polar bears are so hungry they will try to eat the babies, but this one didn't. Watch carefully on the horizon. It's right on the horizon.
I don't see it at all.
Right behind her?
No, it's to the right of her. You can see her walking on the horizon, right where the rocks meet the sky. Right there. Maybe it's a female since it's not interested.
You there?
There, the baby just moved toward us. There, look at that shot.
Over the rear rump.
Yep.
There's
Oh,
Mom up,
yeah.
sniffing.
Mom's stretching.
Wow, it looks like a cheetah.
Look at those
Yeah, look at
paws.
those. Yeah, she's way out straight.
Wow.
She is. Yeah.
Here's one I got.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah. Wonderful. I'm losing the baby now.
Yeah, the baby's behind.
Digital is you take 100 pictures.
My most favorite still picture is this one that my wife took of the baby resting her head on the mom's rump. And also, I have to tell you, even in August, this is what it looked like outside with the northern lights. They were on for 2 or 3 nights in a row, and they were just wonderful. So I hope you enjoyed my video about the polar bears of Churchill. And the animals were great looking at them, but it's even more fun meeting new people on the trips that we go on. And here are some of our very good friends that we met.